Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Fresh off a boat ride from Lake Victoria, we're in Kisumu region for the Great Debaters Contest. I am Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. We have a riveting debate for you today between Kaimosi girls and Chianda High School. Is the underdevelopment in Africa due to our overdependence on foreign aid? We'll let the debaters tackle the motion now. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
Indeed, Africa has experienced underdevelopment in many forms, and we cannot dispute the fact that foreign aids have contributed to this underdevelopment. First, I'd like to cite the fact that patritional funds that have been given to African states by the foreign nations have led to underdevelopment. Okay, these funds come in form of loans and grants. As you all know, when one is given a loan, there's some interest that is given to which he will pay the loan in. And when these foreign nations give African states these loans, we find that when now it comes to time of servicing the loans, we spend more in servicing the loans than what we had been given to develop our own nations. And also the grants. They say that the grants are free loans. Grants are not totally free. They come with conditions. Some of these grants come with condition, in that you find that when a nation is given a grant, it might come with a condition such that it limits you to the trade. You can only trade with the nation that has given you the grant. Such that when you're importing, you only import the goods from them as a return of the grant that they gave you. Another factor is scholarships. Some of these aids come in form of scholarships. And as you all know, when one travels abroad from Africa to study, when it comes to employment, the foreign nations prefer employing the scholars from Africa, and this denies Africa of skilled labor that we might have acquired from our own educated scholars, and this will greatly affect the development of Africa. Thank you.
Opposer number 1, you also have 3 minutes for your opening statements.
I'm Chianda from Kaimosi Girls High School. I would like to oppose the motion that says underdevelopment in Africa is due to overdependence on foreign aid. First and foremost, underdevelopment means the state of industries in Africa not being to a point that Africans can rely on this help. Secondly, overdependence. This is relying on other countries for help. And I'm opposing and saying overdependence in Africa has instead led to development in our continent. First, it has led to it has helped us in the judicial system, in that Africans, the populace can rely on the foreign countries to get fair judgment or justice to them. An example is the ICC. It really helps Africa. Let's take an example of Charles Taylor of Egypt. He was imprisoned by the ICC because he was not taking the children's education seriously. Instead, he was recruiting them to the army. This has really helped Africa. ICC is also now helping Kenya as a country. We had the post-election violence. The alleged criminals, our Honorable President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Vice President, those people are there. Then, secondly, currency and banking. We have really benefited a lot. we got independence. And before independence, we were using goods for goods. But now we have currency. We can measure the value of goods. We can store our goods in form of currency. We can get loans in form of currency. Instead, like the other time, when people used to get goods, sometimes you go there, there's no double coincidence for our goods. Lastly, in our tourism sector, it is evident from Kenya. Before the post-election violence occurred, we had so many foreigners coming from the American countries, the European countries, but now we don't have any. Hotels are deserted in Mombasa. Why? These people are not coming. Our income from tourism is becoming low and low every day because we don't have foreigners coming into the country. So I think overdependence on foreigners really brings aid to Africa. Thank you.
Rebuttals, beginning with the proposition, you have 3 minutes.
I'm Vincent Omboho from Chianda High. I'm proposing the motion that goes, underdevelopment in Africa is due to overdependence on foreign aid. First, we get that when we are given this assistance from outside, the donors tend to dominate our markets. Hence, they have that control over our markets. And we find that they give us conditions. Let me say they give us funds to develop our country. We in turn pay this with a lot of interest. And sometimes we are also given some conditions that we must import more goods from these countries. And we all know that Africa, we still have that low capability of producing our own goods. So we end up importing more goods. And this money that we use could have been used somewhere else to develop part of the economy. Secondly, we have that this overdependence reduces creativity of Africans. One, we have the technology. In the technological world, we hear that most of this is dominated by the Western countries. And Africans really rely on these computers, social medias. And you get that some countries like China have developed their own social media. So they don't take that money to develop other countries. But in Africa, what do? We rely so heavily on the social medias presented to us by the Western countries. Another one is that this reduced creativity. We can take importation of goods. It is true. And I believe almost all of us are aware that we import almost every essential goods, as little as toothpick, we import from China. Name it, earbuds, we import from China. And when we import these goods, we use a lot of money to bring them to Kenya. You have to pay taxes, you have to pay for these goods, their value. And when they reach Kenya, the cost is somehow high than whatever came from outside. So this money could have been used to develop our country. But instead, we take them out. We don't produce our own goods, we import. There is this notion that goes that we leave China, watch China, travel China, and everything we do is China in Kenya. So this one can tell us a good example of such reduction in creativity. Then lastly, we have the brain drain. We hear that most of our scholars, they get sponsorship to study in the Western countries or the developed countries that outside Africa. But in turn, they resort to work in those countries, leaving us with nothing at all. We remain here with those who are have low qualification in the economy. Let's take a case of doctors. We don't have some doctors for some diseases, forcing us to go outside the country. But in real sense, we have those doctors inside our country or who are citizens, but instead they work in, let me say USA, they work in countries like France, India, and all those. But in Africa, we are left with nothing. So this one cannot bring at all development in Africa if we don't have those experts to be on the forefront of development. Thank you.
Opposition will now hear your rebuttal. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Ashley Kimberly from Kaimosi Girls. Firstly, I would like to oppose my fellow competitor. He has said that brain drain leads to African countries lacking these people to drive our countries to development. Take an example of Uhuru Kenyatta. He studied at Harvard, and he's the same person who's leading Kenya now. And I believe he will lead this country to development. Firstly, I'd like to say that whenever these foreign countries give us foreign aid, they enable us to dream. We get these dreams, these visions, and they enable us to come up with visions that we are likely to accomplish. Take, for example, Tanzania has Vision 2015, and this has been inspired by this foreign aid. Whenever they bring foreign aid, they ask ourselves, we look forward to when this country will not be receiving foreign aid, but will be able to depend on itself. So we get these dreams and we work on them to develop ourselves as a continent. Secondly, I'd like to look at creation of employment. Whenever we import experts from foreign countries like China, Japan, and USA, we create employment. Take, for example, roads which are constructed in various places in Africa. These constructors they need these laymen, the workmen, who are to help in this construction of this infrastructure. So that mwananchi who will get employment during the construction of these infrastructural facilities will be able to be elevated according to his living standards. Therefore, the nation will go forward, and as a continent, we will develop. Lastly, I'd like to look at our agricultural sector. This foreign aid has enabled us to grow as an agricultural sector, in that the machinery that we import from these countries help us. They hasten processes like harvesting and planting, where when this happens, the agricultural sector will grow, and whenever it grows, agriculture is the backbone to many of these countries' economies. So whenever we grow these sectors, the countries also grow.
Napenda Safaricom, napenda kuwa na M-Pesa, pesa mkononi ama pesa mfukoni.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap, or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The audience has posed questions to the two teams on stage. The proposition has been asked, are there any conditions placed on Africa when receiving grants or other forms of foreign aid? And the opposers have been asked, what is the correlation between tourism and foreign aid? We'll let them respond to the questions now. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Vincent Kimani from Chianda High School. The answer from my brother from St. Mary's Yala School, when he asked, are there conditions that are posted to African nations when they receive loans and grants from the Western world? That is very true. We know, as students, we have students who take history. We know that the Western world has fully influenced our political lives here in African states when they give us these loans. For example, the notation given by my friend, Kenya is made in China. We eat China. We live China. We travel China. We buy everything from China. From cell phones to televisions, all electronics machines, we buy them from China. So we have been limited. We get, for example, we get aid of construction. Look at our roads. They are built by Chinese people. So we are limited in order for us to correlate with the Chinese people, we are limited to relate with them financially by buying what they sell to us. That is my answer. And this underdevelopment has been led, underdevelopment in Africa is due to overdependence on foreign aid, has demoralized many African educated elites. For example, why do we have to hire Chinese engineers to build our roads? Yet we have civil engineers in our countries. Why can't we use poverty as a state of mind? Where we have a negative mind, we have a mentality that we Africans cannot do something good. So we go and look for the Chinese people to come and facilitate on our roads. So we are disappointing our legends who fought for African independence, to be independent economically, politically, and socially. Disappointing legends, African nationalists out of the diaspora of Kenya, like Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington. We are disappointing them. Instead of becoming economically independent, we are not becoming economic independence by depending on the Western world aid. Thank you.
Third opposer, you have 3 minutes as well to respond to the audience.
Development, development, and more development, all because of sweet foreign aid from foreign countries. I am Carol Daisy from Friends School, Kaimosi Girls. A fellow member asked me, how is stomach creating employment? My fellow colleague stated that when we get aid from foreign countries to come and help us develop our infrastructure, they come as supervisors and not as constructors themselves. They come into Kenya only to supervise the work. If you walk along the Kenyan roads, it is crystal clear, it is vividly seen that the Chinese men who come into Kenya, they only come to supervise the work and not actually to carry out the activity itself. When we talk about creation of employment, we mean that these people, yes, come into Kenya to supervise, but who works on the Kenyan roads? The common mwananchi is the person who works on the Kenyan roads. And this person who works on these Kenyan roads, obviously at the end of the month, will get a salary. This salary will help raise the living standards of this common mwananchi. And at long last, the economy of a country will grow, and therefore, the country will soon develop. How is tourism related to foreign aid donations? I hereby tell you, and also ask you at the same time, when do we say that a country is fully developed? We simply say that a country is fully developed when the economy is risen. And when does the economy rise? When we get to have foreign exchange, foreign aid from other nations. Possibly you wonder how. I hereby tell you that with tourism, we get to have tourists from foreign countries coming into other countries. Take a look at a country like Kenya. Kenya is known for the beaches. Kenya is known for the wildlife. And how is the economy of Kenya growing? This is simply because of the foreign exchange that does take place in our country, our homeland, Kenya. We get it because of the foreign exchange that takes place that enables the economy to grow and thus developing the country. Foreign aid instead has led into development simply because, let us look at the educational system. It has really enabled Africa to grow. Take a look at Robert Mugabe. He's one of the most educated presidents in Africa. Where did he study? Outside Africa, in a foreign nation. Take a look at somebody like Uhuru Kenyatta, the president of your motherland, the president of your homeland. He is somebody who is now in power. Let's take a look at somebody like Uhuru Kenyatta, studied in Harvard. Who is he now in the country's economy? He's the president leading to the country's development. Once again, my good names are Carol Daisy. Pleasure.
We'll now hear closing statements. Proposers, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Once again, I'm Vincent Somboho from Chianda. I'd like to say that surely this foreign aid we get from outside our countries, it doesn't bring all that meaningful development. Instead, it brings about underdevelopment in our country. Take, for example, the opposers have just said that we get people from outside, experts, to come and work on our Kenyan roads. These people come, they are the engineers. They get the lion's share of the money that is given out. But what of the Africans that are employed there? They are casual workers. They get the lowest pay ever for those people who are working on the roads. Secondly, these people again come with their instruments for work. Some even come with their wheelbarrows to work. Our companies manufacturing even those wheelbarrows are left there. They don't have anywhere to sell. So I would like us to support the motion that says that underdevelopment in Africa is surely caused by the overdependence on foreign aid. Otherwise, have a nice time.
Opposers, you also have a minute for your final submission.
Ladies and gentlemen, development, development, and development is what each and every country in Africa seeks. Even as we look at the foreign countries, our inspiration, we want to be like them. We want to reach at the standards where they are. That is where Africa is aiming at. This is because we want to be developed. Look at Kenya, Vision 2030. That is why today we look at USA as our inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, grant me a lemon, I'll make a lemonade. Grant my opponents a lemon, they'll cut it for you into pieces. Join me. Let's allow foreign aid into our African countries and let us develop and even become better than the already developed countries in this world. We can make it. We have the potential. Trust me, foreign aid is exactly what we Africans require. Thank you.
Kaimosi girls, you had an upper hand in this motion. Overdependence and underdevelopment in Africa is due to foreign aid. And you could have simply said it is not because of foreign aid. There are other external factors or other factors that have led to underdevelopment in Africa, notably corruption, poor leadership. You know, all those factors you could have discussed to prove your point that it is not foreign aid, but there are other things that have led to underdevelopment in Africa. Kimani, you raised some issues that are quite emotive in the course of your presentation, and also you go overboard when it comes to time. I call you a good revolutionary leader, but when it comes to debate, you really need to do a lot in terms of sharpening your debate skills. In my opinion, which is correct, we did not really understand what foreign aid is. And next time when you are given a motion, let's take time and interpret the motion. To the two teams, I'll not say good. I'll say it was slightly below standard.
For Kaimosi girls, I know that you were trying to show that overdependence on foreign aid is actually what has led to development in Africa, which were two ways in which you could have looked at the motion, but also say that this overdependence on foreign aid is what has actually led to development in Africa. And then you needed to show how. But because we did not understand, and you also did not explain what foreign aid is, and if you attempted to, then, you know, that explanation was not right. Then there was a challenge, you know, in the motion. And secondly, that in some of the submissions that you're making, that you're actually propounding as if are facts are not facts, you know. So you want to ensure that the facts that you're giving are things that in journalism we say you can take a bullet for because you can prove that it is right. And so that then, you know, challenged the motion quite a bit. But all the best.
The judges saw it fit to award Chianda High School and Kaimosi Girls High School with a similar score of 60%. Please give them a round of applause.
Good job to both teams. And from all of us here at the Great Debaters Contest, we'd like to thank you for watching. And of course, our gratitude goes out to Safaricom M-Pesa and to KBC Channel 1. Do remember to follow us on Twitter at Great Debaters EA. I have been your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Yumbok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.